What you're about to hear has never been told to Western audiences. The first-hand account of a North Korean state official who orchestrated the largest single mass defection in modern history. He didn't escape from a labor camp. He escaped from a desk, from a uniform, from decades of absolute belief in a system he helped enforce. And when he finally saw what that system really was, he didn't run alone. He took 370 people with him. For more exclusive testimonies, subscribe and become part of our investigative community. These stories only survive if people like you keep watching. I never once questioned the system. The state trusted me with this posting, and I believed it was my duty to honor that trust. When problems arose, I blamed the individual, never the system. That was the truth I'd been taught my whole life. Every evening I walked the dormitory halls checking on people. Was anyone sick? Having trouble adjusting? Heard from family back home? When they saw me coming, they bowed. I'd ask, "Everything all right?" And they'd answer, "Yes, Comrade Director, we're fine." Then one autumn, something shifted. Instructions from Pyongyang started feeling off. Orders came to revise the repatriation list. Then days later, reshuffle it again. No explanation either time. I told myself not to question it. Higher-ups always had their reasons. But the people who had already gone home, not one of them had been in touch. Usually returnees would call. Arrived safely, reunited with family. This time, nothing. One evening, a woman knocked on my office door. Mid-30s, face drained of color. "Comrade Director, my husband returned a month ago and we haven't heard a word. Does re-education really take this long?" I tried to reassure her, but I didn't believe my own words. That night, I pulled out the list. 23 people had gone home in 2 months. Not one had made contact. A few days later, Pyongyang sent another order, double the number of returnees. No reason given, just implement immediately. That night I couldn't sleep. The next morning, people were gathered in the hallway, fear in their eyes. A worker asked carefully, "Comrade Director, will we have to go back soon?" All I could manage was, "I'll let you know when orders come." That afternoon I called the local liaison. "Any news about the people who've already returned?" A long silence. Then, "That's not something I'm in a position to know." Click. I set down the receiver and stared out the window. For the first time, I asked myself, what exactly am I here to protect? Orders? People? I'd spent my whole life believing those were the same thing. Now, for the first time, that belief cracked. The new repatriation list had 47 names. Among them, a technician I'd worked alongside for 5 years. A worker barely 20 years old. I called them in one by one. The first was engineer Kim, skilled, trusted by everyone. He stood before me and asked, "Comrade Director, am I on the list?" I nodded. "Tuesday of next week." His face went rigid. After a long pause, "Have you heard anything about Engineer Park? The one who went back last month?" My silence told him everything. He lowered his head and left. His back looked so small walking out the door. That evening, people not on the list started quietly packing their bags. By nightfall, there was a line outside my door, all with the same questions. When is my turn? Can my family come? Will we be safe? I had nothing to give them. The best I could offer was, following orders is the safest course. But each time I said it, my voice shook a little more. Then a post-repatriation report arrived from Pyongyang. I opened it. My hands went cold. It listed all 23 returnees. Beside each name, re-education completed, receiving medical care, reunited with family. The language seemed normal, but every single entry shared the same date, all 23 processed within 4 days. Investigation, orientation, family reunification done in 4 days. That made no sense. And reunited with family was language used for people separated for long stretches. These workers had only been abroad 2 or 3 months. The next morning, I called the liaison again. "Can I speak directly with the people who returned last month?" Long silence. "That's not possible." "Why not?" "Regulations." Click. One thought cut through everything. If going back isn't safe, what exactly am I doing here? A knock before I could finish the thought. 3 security officers. "Comrade Director, you'll need to come with us." They took me to the basement. 1 desk, 1 chair. Papers spread across the table. "Did you make unnecessary inquiries to the local embassy?" I was asking about colleagues. Do not question decisions from above. "The repatriation process is proceeding normally. Proceed with the next list as scheduled." "Understood?" I nodded. Back at my desk, the list still lay there. 47 names. Where am I actually sending these people? That night, around 2 a.m., movement outside my window. Someone stepped out of the dormitory. Then another, and another. People gathering quietly in the dark. I threw on my jacket and went out. They stood in a circle, voices low, passing something between them. Engineer Kim turned to me. "Comrade Director, you need to see this." With trembling hands, he held out a letter. It was from the younger brother of Engineer Park, delivered through a smuggler. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. Brother was taken 3 days after he arrived. Security officers came at night. His wife and children disappeared 2 days later. The neighbors won't talk. They're terrified. Please tell the people still over there. Don't come back. You won't survive it. My hands were shaking. The words blurred. That wasn't the page my eyes had filled. Engineer Park. I knew him. Quiet but solid. A wife and 2 kids. The night before he left, he'd said, "Comrade Director, I can't wait to see my kids' faces." I patted his shoulder. "You'll see them soon." He was gone now. So was his family. I looked up. About 20 people watching me. Fear and despair on every face. A young worker's voice shook. "Comrade Director, is this real?" My silence was its own answer. An older woman crumpled to the ground. "What do we do? I have a mother in Pyongyang, 80 years old. If something happens to me, what becomes of her?" Others sank to their knees. Engineer Kim stepped forward. "Comrade Director, we trust you. You've never lied to us. So I'm asking directly, if we go back, are we actually safe?" I held his gaze, then I shook my head slowly. "I can't say that I know." A sound went through the crowd somewhere between a gasp and a moan. "I've looked at those reports," I continued. "The records from the returnees, something's wrong with them. And now this letter. I can't stand here and tell you everything is fine. A man shot to his feet. Then what are we supposed to do? Refuse orders and we're traitors, our families pay for it. Go back and die, what kind of choice is that?" No answer. He was right. Return and face death. Stay and endanger the families left behind. "Go inside," I said. "Get some rest. I'll find a way." They dispersed slowly, feet heavy. I stood alone as the sky began to lighten. That night, an anonymous note appeared on my desk. "Comrade Director, if individuals act alone, they disappear quietly. But if a group moves together, this becomes an incident. Incidents cannot be quietly handled. The international community is watching. Alone you vanish. Together you cannot be erased." The next morning brought fresh crisis. An urgent cable advanced the schedule. All 47 depart within 2 days. 2 days. No time to think. I stepped into the corridor. Word had already spread. Some were weeping, some staring blankly. A woman ran toward me. "Comrade Director is my husband. Really leaving in 2 days." I had no choice but to nod. She collapsed where she stood. "Don't send him. If he goes, I'll never see him again." That afternoon, Engineer Kim appeared at my office door. Behind him, several technicians. They closed the door. Kim spoke low and deliberate. "Comrade Director, we've made a decision. We're not going back." Another man said, "I have a wife and 2 daughters in Pyongyang. If I go back and something goes wrong, Yanjuaje takes them all. I'd rather stay and find a way to bring them over someday." Another, "You know what happened to Engineer Park. We go back, we're next." Their faces weren't afraid anymore. These were people who had made up their minds. Kim continued, "If we run individually, we get picked off one by one. But if we all move together, dozens, hundreds, that becomes an incident. You can't quietly make an incident disappear." He looked me in the eyes. "Comrade Director, come with us. Without you, we'll scatter. If you lead us, we hold together." I shook my head. "I have a family in Pyongyang. If I make this choice, what happens to my wife and sons?" Kim answered quietly, "If you send us back following orders, will your family be safe? High Command is already suspicious of you. You know about the inquiry. You're already in danger." That landed like a blow. He was right. That night around 2 a.m., a knock. Deputy Director Ri and 5 other managers behind him. They filed into my room. "We heard. The technicians have decided. We've decided too. We're going with them." One said, "Running alone, we all get caught. Moving together, at least there's a chance." Another, "You've always treated us like human beings, so we'll follow wherever you go." Ri took my hand. "This isn't your decision alone. It's all of ours." I turned to the window. Dawn beginning. I faced them. "All right, we go together. But one condition, not one person gets left behind. Families included. All 370 together. Can we do that?" Ri nodded. "We'll make it possible." I gathered everyone that night, all 370, packed into one room. "Tomorrow we move. I can't promise success, but I'll make you one promise. I will be responsible for every one of you until the end. We leave together and we arrive together. Somewhere in the room, crying not despair, but something like hope breaking open. On the back of my family photo, I wrote one line Dad chose to live like a human being. Friday, 4 a.m. I'd never slept. Today was the day. At 5 a.m., the first group departed. 50 people in family units, walking out as if heading to work. Engineer Kim led them. The guard looked up. Early site inspection. The guard nodded. They went through. 5 minutes. No alarm. By 7 a.m., I was left with the final group, 70 people, mostly elderly and young children. One grandmother said, "Comrade Director, I'm slow. What if I cause problems?" I took her hand. "We go together. Slow is fine." 7:30, we stepped out. We walked in twos and threes through the city, never clustering. The South Korean embassy was 2 hours away. 30 minutes in, a grandfather sat down on the sidewalk, lungs giving out. 2 young men lifted him without a word and kept walking. At the 50-minute mark, 2 black sedans heading our way. North Korean vehicles. I said quietly, "Keep walking. Don't make eye contact." The window rolled down. A man inside looked us over, elderly people, children, bags in hand. The car accelerated and moved on. I exhaled, but I couldn't relax. Then my phone rang. Engineer Kim, voice shaking. "Comrade Director, there are North Korean personnel gathered in front of the embassy. They're waiting for us." Everything in my head went white. They knew. I thought fast. "Kim, get out of their line of sight. Find a building nearby." I remembered there was an alley behind the market nearby, a back path to the embassy's rear entrance. I relayed the change to all groups. Not the front gate, the back entrance. Behind the market. At 9 a.m. we reached the end of the alley. All the other groups were already there. 370 people sweating, breathing hard, exhausted. But no one had quit. I counted. Every single one of them. Not one missing. Engineer Kim pointed toward the alley entrance. Black cars. North Korean personnel scanning the area. Ree said, barely above a whisper, "They're looking for us. No time." "The back gate is 100 meters. We have to run." A woman asked, trembling, "Will the back gate even be open?" "I don't know. But we have no other option." I looked at all of them, elderly, children, women, men. 370 faces turned toward me. Trust in their eyes. We run. If someone falls, we pick them up. Ready? Every head nodded. Then let's go. 370 people thundered through the streets. Feet on pavement, it shook the ground. Bystanders stopped and stared. We didn't stop. At 50 meters, engine sounds behind us. The black sedans accelerating. "Faster!" People surged. One grandmother tripped. 2 young men scooped her up without breaking stride. 20 meters. The embassy's rear gate came into view, tall wall, iron door. Locked. I reached it and slammed my fists against the metal. Bang. Bang. "Open up! There are people here. Please help us." Silence from inside. The North Korean personnel were closing in. 10 meters. 5. I kept pounding. My hands ached. "Please." Then a deadbolt turning. The door swung open. A man stood there. Embassy staff. He stared at us. What is this?" I gasped. "We're North Korean overseas workers. Please let us in." He glanced past me at the personnel closing in. He made his call instantly. Everyone inside. Now, people poured through. Children first, then elderly, then women, then men. I stood at the back, pushing people through. 100, 150, 200. One North Korean officer grabbed the door frame and shoved. Engineer Kim and Ree sprinted to my side. We all leaned into the gate. They pushed from the other side. It swung back and forth, open, shut, open again. "Push!" Every young man in the courtyard rushed over. 20 of us. Our weight won. The gate slammed shut. I threw the bolt. From outside pounding. "Open this door. Now." I turned around. The courtyard was packed. 370 people. All of them soaked in sweat. All of them gasping. But alive. Every one of them alive. A child began to cry and the others followed. Mothers held them close. One grandmother sat on the ground and looked up at the sky. "We made it. We're alive." The embassy director came out and looked at us. A long, slow breath. "I understand your situation, but we can't accommodate this many people. And local police are on their way, called by the North Korean side." I stepped forward. "Sir, if these people are sent back, they won't survive." He looked conflicted. Engineer Kim stepped up. "Then make it a diplomatic matter. We're already inside. The world is going to find out why we came. The director took a moment, then nodded slowly. I'll protect everyone here for now. 3 days inside the embassy. Pyongyang called us traitors and demanded extradition, but South Korea made its decision they would take us. On the third night, tomorrow at dawn we'll escort you to the airport. A special flight to South Korea is ready. The courtyard erupted. People wept not in grief but relief. They held each other, all 370 of them. I sat quietly in the corner. Something more complicated than joy. I thought of Pyongyang, my wife, my sons. Engineer Kim sat beside me. Heavy heart? I nodded. He said quietly, your choice saved 370 lives. Don't forget that. At the airport, I was the last one to board. At the top of the stairs, I turned and looked back. The sun was coming up. A new day. 4 hours later, the captain's voice. We will be landing at Incheon Airport shortly. People pressed to the windows. Below ground, South Korea. When the plane touched down, the door opened. The moment her feet hit the tarmac, one woman dropped to her knees and kissed the earth. Korea, Korea, whispered through tears. I stepped off. The ground was solid, real. About a week in, I walked the streets of Seoul with Engineer Kim and Deputy Director Ri. We stopped in front of a cafe. Inside, young people laughing, talking, not a worry in their faces. Kim said quietly, they don't know how free they are. I nodded. I think that might be what real freedom looks like, not having to think about it at all. A month later, all 370 had found their footing. We still got together sometimes. We were family now. One day I walked alone along the Han River. I pulled out the family photo worn, creased. I looked at my wife's face. She was smiling. I spoke to the photo quietly. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you. But I was trying to live like a human being, not as a slave to orders. As a person who gets to choose. The wind came. Warm. Tears followed. For the first time, I cried out loud guilt, grief, love, all of it at once. When it passed, my chest was a little lighter. That evening, all 370 of us came together at a small restaurant. Near the end of the meal, Engineer Kim stood. Tonight we mark that we survived together. And we want to say thank you. He looked at me. Brother, if you'll allow it. Without you, none of us would be here. I waved my hand. It wasn't me. We did this together. I stood. We lost a great deal. Our homeland. Our families. Everything we knew. But we gained the most important thing. I paused. Ourselves. We are no longer people living under someone else's orders. We are people who choose. That is what it means to be free.